What is this place? What is this place? What is this place? What is this place? What is this place?
Well, hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm David Boles, and this is Boles.tv. B-O-L-E-S dot T and a V. And if you are somewhere in the world and you try to type that in, I know some places will block that because it's not an SSL web address. So you can just go to twitch.tv/BolesTV, all one word, and you'll find us, our live stream. And on YouTube, some of our video on demand is there available at boles.live, BOLES.LIVE. However, sometimes that URL is blocked as well because it's not SSL, it's just a forwarding domain. So if you want to find us on YouTube, you can just go to youtube.com/BolesBlues. And that will get you right here where we are right now. Well, it's been a very interesting couple of days. A lot to talk about today. Oh boy. We got a long way to go. so many interesting things going on in the world. It's just hard to stop and take a little breath and try to figure out who you are, where you're going, and if you have arrived yet. And that's what we endeavor to do every day right here on Boles TV, Monday through Friday. Right, 9 a.m. So on Friday, Jana will be here doing a wonderful ASL lesson at 9:15 in the morning. She has a previous commitment that does not allow her to be here at 10:15, so she'll be here at 9:15. Bright, shiny, lovely, full-faced Jana Marie, sweetheart. And I know what she's going to be teaching, but I don't know if she knows. It's going to be fabulous. Very interesting, as are everything that she does on Boles TV. And she has a very own show, Saturdays and Sundays at 11 a.m., where she talks about fun facts and cats and the Super Bowl and Valentine's Day and ASL and disability and lots of fun stuff. Our problem with our music stream is still continuing. I finally contacted Slipstream yesterday and said, hey, the songs are not playing in shuffle mode or in play mode. They play one song and that's it. It doesn't keep going. And they said, thanks. And usually they fix things right away. And I, this morning, tried to get ready to go on here and see you. Slipstream is not working. So you're once again listening to Pretzel Rocks. What song is this? Well, since we're using Pretzel Rocks, we can type an exclamation point and then song and bingo. Now playing until next time by Wisdom. And there is the Pretzel Rocks URL, so you can go and listen to that wonderful song on your own. And also something else happened in the recent Mac updates where my Elgato lights are not working. I used to be able to flick them on and off by the click of a button, and now it's not working. So now I have to unplug them and plug them back in every day, and then they reset to their default, which, as you can see, makes me look slightly blue. Talking about skin color. I mean, yes, white and pasty, but usually it's a little warmer paste. A little warmer paste, I said. Lots of shadow. Shadows are not good. Shadows make you look old. So you try to do the best you can with what you have. And on Friday, I'll tell you, Jen is going to be talking about light. Different kinds of light. From two different angles. Intensity of light and the color of light. It's going to be great. That I promise you. Fantastic. Well, I don't know if you know, the big news of the day, February 15th, is Craft Singles Day. Do you love craft singles? They're convenient. I don't eat them. But they're not necessarily dairy. I think they're made with a lot of oil. National Craft Singles... Oh, no, wait a minute. It's not National Craft Singles Day. It's actually Singles Day in America. What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean this. But the National Census Bureau has declared that February 15th is Singles Day in America. I call it National Craft Singles Day because I'm one of those people. But I guess this is supposed to be a celebration of being single. The day after Valentine's Day. Now, as I said in a previous Boles.tv live broadcast, wouldn't you want National Singles Day to be February 13? With the idea that, hey, I'm single, and if I want to mingle or find someone so I'm not single, maybe I'll find them on the 13th, and then on the 14th, we could get together and have a Valentine's Day together. But having National Singles Day the day after Valentine's Day just seems odd. I mean, maybe people break up on Valentine's Day and then they're single and they feel bad, or maybe they're looking for a new person to be with. I find the whole thing to be just batty. But what do I know? I don't work for the Census Bureau. I don't take the census. I only know what I know. And today I have declared it National Craft Singles Day. Well, we love to talk a lot about art on this live stream, and yesterday we talked about some unfortunate commissioned art that we were part of. And as part of that conversation, we showed this wonderful painting of Jack, our beloved cat, who is no longer with us, done by our friend Dora, a friend of this stream. And then we talked a little more about process, and Dora has, over time, sent me some examples of work that she was doing for a friend of hers whose dog died, Yorkshire Terrier. And I appreciate that. I love seeing the process of how an artist works. And this is the first piece of work that she sent me. On a canvas, painted, of the dog. Interesting process. This alone, I think, is interesting and full of character and fun. Then she sent me the next image in her process, which is this, which is a little bit of yellow added. It's not flat on the table anymore. Now it's up so we can see a little more clearly. Cute, right? Oh, there's Dora. We're talking about Dora. And then, as part of our ongoing process, Dora sent me this yesterday. This is the finished final process of her friend's dog, who now lives again out of Dora's hand. And so I love seeing that process where you go from this to this to this. And Dora said there was something that she didn't really like about it, so she went back and redid it. I don't know if that means painting over it or if that means starting all over from scratch, but that's how artists work. Sometimes you find something you don't like and you throw it away. And sometimes you're just sitting down and doodling and you say, oh, now that's interesting, and you get it right the first time. So as ever, I thank our friend Dora for sharing her artistic work and her work process for us, because it really helps us understand how and why an artist does what they do. Here's another fascinating, weird story. Painted over it, Dora said. Now, that's interesting. Thank you. And that. Now, painting over I love, because that means, as we have learned, that's what the masters did. They didn't want to throw away their canvas. They would just paint over what they already painted. And now they have technology where they can, look at it like with an X-ray and go lift each layer of paint off of the canvas digitally, so they can see the art hiding underneath the painting that we all know. One day that will happen for Dora. The paint will be stripped away and we'll find the original bones of the dog in the process. Well, this is just weird. I believe this happened in Wisconsin, where a school is strip searching students because they're vaping. And the parents are rightly upset. No one is above the law, no one. One parent said, I'm appalled. This should never happen again. At the meeting, some parents informed the newspaper that the students reported to them that they were called into the office and were strip searched. It was reported by the parents that the district superintendent approved of, and in some cases, performed the strip searches of the female students, along with a female school nurse and female law enforcement officer. A male school principal and a male officer did the searching of the male students. One parent explained what she learned from her daughter. She was taken into a large room and gave them her vaping pen. The superintendent told her that she was going to strip search her anyway. She stripped down to her bra and underwear and had to pull her bra out so they could look down and make sure that nothing was in there. She said this was done to multiple students, and it was done before parents were informed. I was informed hours later that it was done and that she would receive an in-school suspension. Now that is some dangerous stuff. Trying to, it appears on the surface, get a little bit of a thrill in school by making these kids strip so you could find their vape pen. Very bizarre. And I'm glad the parents are upset, and I'm glad the kids are upset, because that should not be allowed to happen. So here's an interesting article about when people sing, no matter where they are in the world, they sort of lose their accent. And they sing, I guess, flat or American. And what I find interesting about that is, for many, many years, and it may still be true, when they were the national news, CBS, ABC, NBC, when it was just them, broadcast news, when they were looking for someone to come in and host a national news show, they would usually go to the Midwest, pull someone out of Omaha, like Tom Brokaw. And they like Midwesterners because Midwesterners really have no discernible accent. It's just a flat, narrow sort of speech. They didn't want the New York drawl or the California airhead stereotype. They didn't want anybody from the South doing the national news. So they go to Nebraska, where they talk flat and end every sentence with at. Where did you put it at? Well, now it seems the same as, and I don't know if that's still true in broadcast news, but if you look at the people who were in the chair, they don't really have discernible accents. And that is a purposeful choice. And now when we look to singing performers, superstars, they may have an English accent when they speak, but not when they sing. There are stutterers. Mel Tillis was a famous stutterer, but when he sang, he did not stutter. Gomer Pyle, Jim Nabors. Very strange way of talking on TV, but when he sang with a deep and resonant voice. Very interesting. So this article kind of suggests why and how all of that was happening. So why does Adele sound American? Well, she doesn't really, of course, not when she speaks. But when she sings, her North London drawl dissolves. If you didn't recognize that famous voice, you'd have no way of identifying it as a British singer at all. Other English singers seem to switch sides of the Atlantic when they sing too. Excuse me, take Mick Jagger. You can hear the English vowels coloring some of his words and songs. But he seems to be trying his hardest to sound like Muddy Waters or some other American bluesman. Eric Clapton doesn't sound particularly British when he sings, or Amy Winehouse when she was alive. And Tom Jones never sounded especially Welsh when he sang. According to linguists Rob and Aaron, this shift in accent has two causes, as reported by the Daily Mail. The first is linguistic. The mechanics of singing are different from the mechanics of breathing, vowel length, and quality. For instance, change to accommodate the sustained pitch of singing. As we increase airflow, we inevitably lengthen our syllables, and our articulation becomes less pronounced. On the other side of the Atlantic, where the English language is generally rhotic, example, the letter R gets pronounced even at the end of a word over instead of ova. The only way to flow from word to word while sustaining pitch and airflow is to drop the final R. That means American singing already sounds slightly transatlantic if you pay attention. If you don't believe us, try singing your favorite song and really pronouncing all those final R's. Now, when you think of Over the Rainbow, I think people do pronounce the final R. Over the rainbow, over the rainbow. And it's interesting, in radio, it used to be perfect pronunciation was very important. And perfect pronunciation means, I guess, mainstream American English. Some might say white English. And now the latest thing I'm hearing on the radio is you have speakers who do not finish their last consonant in a word, which makes them very regional and oftentimes urban. And while that may be effective in the long run, it's not necessarily terrifically interesting from a linguistic point of view when you're trying to understand what's being said. When a person drops the last syllable of a word, it's difficult to understand what's being said. And there are training programs in theater and in radio where they teach you how to pronounce words. But that training, that education, seems to be minimized now. Where now anything goes. That's what social media has taught us. I don't have a gatekeeper anymore. I don't have to be the New York Times. I am my own New York Times. I can publish my own facts, my own opinion, and nobody can stop me, because what I have to say is just as important as what the New York Times has to say. That's the thinking with some of these theoretical ideas of pronunciation when it comes to performance. And I guess I'm just old school. I like to understand what people are saying. I don't want to have to struggle to understand what's being heard. I understand some advertisers don't care about that anymore. They just want what's out there. They want to connect with a certain type of person who drops the last syllable of a word. And the rest of us, okay. It's the same thing. The new thing on Instagram is Instagram reality, where there aren't any filters, and you see all the wrinkles and all the skin defects. Interesting. And there are some people who say this universal human theory of beauty that we have, the certain nose, the eyes, all measured and quantified, no longer applies. So instead of having a certain sort of woman or man promoting a swimsuit or underwear, now anything goes. We want these to look like real Americans. And I say, are you really sure you want that? Because real Americans sometimes look a little dumpy. And they're fat and ugly. Sometimes. But fat, ugly, scarred, not attractive, traditional attractiveness doesn't seem to play anymore. Now they want real people. And I find that fascinating because these companies spend a lot of money creating beautiful clothing. And the trend away from the beautiful person, from the beautiful model, is very interesting because I don't think that people are really attracted to the clothing as much as they are attracted to the person that is wearing the clothing. And there are those who will say, well, that's the problem with the whole thing. They're setting a false ideal for what should be considered attractive in America. And okay, I'm just not sure if I want to buy a swimsuit from a swimsuit company where it doesn't really fit the person and they're, 3 times over their BMI, male or female. But again, what do I know? I'm old, a little cranky, from the Midwest, don't have much of an accent. Although growing up in Nebraska, I guess the way I talk, because I'm sort of aggressive, that some people thought I was from New York. And one theater professional that I knew said, "What do you mean you're not from New York?" I said, I was born and raised here in Lincoln. They said, "What? With that accent?" I said, "What accent? There's no accent." And people around me like, what? He doesn't have an accent. He doesn't have a New York accent. But you get pegged. So all this time, 4 years, this professor thought that I was from New York and had gone to the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, to get my undergraduate degree in English with a minor in theater. So be careful what you wish for and be wary of what you presume, because it may not be true. And on that delicious note, we're going to take a small break and then come back and talk about the intricacies and the lies you've been told about sleeping. Back in a moment. We are back from break. I'm David Boles. Thank you for being here. This is Boles.tv. Streaming every Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern. And while we were on break, our friend Dora said I had an accent after coming to the U.S. Now I have a New York accent. And we can confirm that Dora does have a New York accent. We have heard her videos talking to the animals. So Dora, where did you have a foreign accent when you came here? Did you know English, or was it? I know you don't have to say where you're from or what language, but I'm just curious how that worked out for you. And what was the transition like from one accent to another? And where do accents come from? It's a very interesting topic. Well, as Dora's thinking about that, oh, no, I didn't know English. Wow. That's interesting. So did you come as a young child? No English. Very interesting. Mispronounced words. Yes, 10 years old. Oh boy, that's hard, tough. But they say that's the best time to learn a foreign language, when you're young. When you're old, you just don't have an ear for it. You don't have a mind for it. To become multilingual as a kid is just the right way to go. It's very important. So one of the old friends of the show is Alexi Guzy. And we've talked about him, I think, in the very first week of this live stream. And he became well known. He's a young Russian guy. Because he analyzed Matt Walker's very famous book on sleep. And Matt Walker's this big professor in California. And Alexi said, well, I'm just going to look at his book and review it, because that's what I do. I'm a researcher. And Alexi's not necessarily trained. Remember, Professor corrected me as I mispronounced adolescent. Oh. Yeah, that happens with deaf kids too, because they can't hear the word. So they pronounce it how, they think it's pronounced or how it's spelled on the page. And there are cruel people around them who will make fun of their pronunciation. So that's why they go to speech therapy. They try to get some help on how to pronounce a word. And the more syllables, the more difficult it becomes. Very true, Dora says. So Alexi is not really a traditionally trained scientist. Very smart, knows what he's doing, and knows how to research things. So he decided to take a look at Matt Walker's book on sleep. And he got through the first chapter and said, there's a lot going on here, and a lot of it is wrong. So he looked at the data. He did his own research. Appropriately did his own research, not in an anti-vaxxer sort of way. I've done my own research. Oh, what lab did you use? Alexi looked up the Matt Walker quotes. Alexi found his own quotes, scientific backup, and completely, in my opinion, destroyed Matt Walker's reputation as a sleep expert. And he didn't even review the whole book. He just reviewed the first chapter and found multiple errors in fact. And Alexi said, why would I read the rest of the book when chapter 1 is so dismal? And on his website, it's still there, that review. He takes it down. He takes Matt Walker down. He doesn't take his review down. So Alexi sent me an email the other day and said, hey, I have a new thesis on sleep and myths and memes and facts and what we think we know about sleep and what we actually do know about sleep. And Alexi's on the other side of Matt Walker. Alexi says we don't need 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night. We can get by with 4. Now, in the Matt Walker world, that's very dangerous. That leads to mental degeneration kinds of things, I guess. And Alexi's saying, it's not true, and I'm going to prove it. So I'll share this with you now, and we're not going to read the whole thing, but we're going to go through it a little bit because it's really fascinatingly done. And if you want to follow along, here is the link. Excuse me. The link in chat. Make sure I spell everything right. Alexi Guzy on sleep. Okay. And there is the link to this article that we're going to talk about. It's Theses on Sleep. And this is brand new. Created 2/10/22. So what? 5 days ago. Modified it 2 days ago. So it's very fresh, very interesting, and very long. There are 21 little chapters on this page. So his summary is, in this essay, I question some of the consensus beliefs about sleep, such as the need for at least 7 hours of sleep for adults, harmfulness of acute sleep deprivation, and harmfulness of long-term sleep deprivation, and our inability to adapt to it all. It appears that the evidence for all these beliefs is much weaker than sleep scientists like Matt Walker and public health experts want us to believe. In particular, I conclude that it's plausible that at least acute sleep deprivation is not only harmful but beneficial. It's not only not harmful but also beneficial. It's hard to get because he's saying the exact opposite of everything we've been led to believe all this time. Acute sleep deprivation is not only not harmful, but beneficial in some contexts. And that's what we're able to adapt to long-term sleep deprivation. I also discuss the bidirectional relationship of sleep and mania depression, and the costs of unnecessary sleep, noting that sleeping 1.5 hours per day less results in gaining more than a month of wakefulness per year every year. So instead of sleeping 8 hours a day, you sleep 6.5, and you get a month back of your life. Interesting. And here is his note. Personally, I sleep 7 to 9 hours if I don't restrict my sleep. However, stimulants like coffee, modafinil, and Adderall seem to have much smaller effect on my cognition than on cognition like most people I know. My brain in general, as you might guess from reading this site, is not very normal. What is that site? Guzy. Okay, this is his website. So be cautious before trying anything with your sleep on the basis of arguments I lay out below. Specifically, do not make any drastic changes to your sleep schedule on the basis of reading this essay. And if you want to experiment with sleep, do it gradually, varying the amount of sleep by no more than 30 minutes at a time and carefully. Okay, so that's the usual disclaimer, and now he goes at it. First argument, comfortable modern sleep is an unnatural superstimulus. Sleepiness, just like hunger, is normal. So in this section, he says, look, if you're sleepy, go to sleep. And if you're wide awake, stay up until you're sleepy. It's the same thing as eating. You eat when you're hungry. Now, a lot of people don't eat when they're hungry. They eat because they want to eat. And he makes that correlation too, that, well, people sleep because they feel they have to. Go to bed at a certain time and wake up at a certain time. Think about sleep 10,000 years ago. You sleep in a cave, in a hut, under the sky, with predators and enemy tribes roaming around you. You're on a wooden floor, an animal skin on the ground. The temperature will probably drop 5 to 10 degrees Celsius overnight, meaning that if you were comfortable when you were falling asleep, you are going to be freezing when you wake up. Finally, there's moon shining right at you and all kinds of sounds coming from the forest around you. And that's true. Well, the one and only time that we really visited the ocean with my beautiful wife, Janet Marie. We had a beautiful oceanside view, opened the windows, and couldn't sleep all night. The ocean, when you're right on it, is very, very, very loud. And it's funny that people buy sound machines, sound apps, to help you sleep at night. Falling rain, traffic. Some of them are the sounds of the ocean. Well, the thing with that is you can turn the sound up and down. When the ocean is right there, crashing on you, it's very loud. And when you sleep in the forest at night, go camping, there are a lot of things that are up at night, and they're making noises at you. So sometimes sleeping in a bed is not a bad thing. And speaking of sounds and noises, when I do this live stream, I try to turn everything off and make sure there's no fans, no sound that would affect my beautiful microphone. And right next to me is our washer-dryer. And even though we're in a box, all these modern apartments are built with cinder block. So if there's a fire, the fire is contained in the one apartment and everyone on the floor is safe in a high-rise. Which I love because cinder block, that kind of fire protection, is very private and quieting. You really can't hear your neighbors at all. Except when you're doing a live stream. And they're right above you doing their laundry or whatever. I mean, it's their kitchen laundry because we're in the same line. And you can hear them talking through the wet wall. Dora says, "When I can't sleep, I listen to Rain and Thunderstorm video." That's very interesting. Now, Alexi would say, if you can't sleep, get out of bed and go do something. And then when you want to sleep, go back to bed. Which is true. I've heard that before. If you're not asleep within 10 minutes, get up and do something else. And there used to be the whole thing with the blue light. The blue light keeps you up. Wear red tinted glasses to help you sleep at night. Well, the red tinted glasses do help you, I believe. But the blue light keeping you up has been proven not to be true. So you can hear your neighbors just above you talking through the holes that for the pipes that go up to your washing machine. And it's very interesting to hear these haunting voices echoing in your walls. Its drum sound is very loud for your information. That's interesting. It doesn't seem very loud here. I'll turn it down. We are currently at 8%. We'll go down to 6% and see if that makes a difference. Hard to know. So you think you're alone in your apartment and your neighbors are up there talking to you through your washing machine. Alexi claims that if you sleep as much as you want, you'll probably sleep too much and become more susceptible to depression. And if you sleep way too much at once, you'll be feeling terrible afterwards, however pleasant the sleep was. Second point, depression, oversleeping, and mania, acute sleep deprivation. In this section, I argue that depression amplifies oversleeping, while oversleeping amplifies depression. Similarly, mania amplifies acute sleep deprivation, while acute sleep deprivation amplifies mania. So this is all very well researched with links, graphs, backs it up. Point number 3. Occasional acute sleep deprivation is good for health and promotes more efficient sleep. That makes sense to me, and there's his argument with his appendix and his notes. Our priors about sleep research should be weak. In this section, I note that most sleep research is extremely unreliable. He's talking about Matt Walker. And we shouldn't conclude much on the basis of it. More graphs. Point 5, decreasing sleep by 1 to 2 hours a night in the long term has no negative health effects. Now, that goes against everything that anybody who believes in sleep so far would ever tell you. A sleep researcher who trains sailors to sleep efficiently in order to maximize their race performance, sailing yachts, believes that 4.5 to 5.5 hours of sleep is fine. 70% of 84 hunter-gatherers studied in 2013 slept fewer than 7 hours per day, with 46% sleeping fewer than 6 hours. A single point mutation can decrease the amount required of sleep by 2 hours with no negative side effects. Brain surgery can decrease the amount of sleep required by 3 hours with no negative side effects. Sleep is not required for memory consolidation. Now that's also against Matt Walker in every way possible that you can imagine. That is Matt Walker's whole idea of his sleep book, is that we sleep to clean our minds and to retain memories. And then here, Alexi goes on to support all of what he just claimed there. Conclusion. I'm not what they call a natural short sleeper. If I don't restrict my sleep, I often sleep more than 8 hours, and I still struggle with getting out of bed. I used to be really scared of not sleeping enough. Me too. And almost never set the alarm for fewer than 7.5 hours after going to bed. My sleep statistics tell me that I slept an average of 5.5 hours over the last 7 days. So 5 hours over the last 30 days and almost 6 hours over the last 80 days. I usually sleep 5 to 6 hours at night and take a few naps a few times a week when sleepy during the day, which is good. So what he just said, that means that I am gaining 33 days of life every year by not sleeping. 1 more year of life every 11 years. 5 more years of life every 55 years. Very interesting. Why are people not all over this? Why is everyone in love with charlatans who say that sleeping 5 hours a night will double your risk of cancer, make you pre-diabetic, and cause Alzheimer's, despite studies showing that people who sleep 5 hours have the same, if not lower, mortality rate than those who sleep 8 hours. Convincing 1 million 20-year-olds to sleep an unnecessary hour a day is equivalent in terms of their hours of wakefulness to killing 62,500 of them. I wrote chunks of this essay having slept fewer than 1.5 hours over a period of 38 hours. I came up with and developed the biggest arguments of it when I slept an average of 5 hours and 39 minutes per day over the preceding 14 days. What do I lose sleeping 15 hours? 1.5 hours a day less? I'm somewhat more sleepy every day, and staying awake during boring calls is even more difficult now. There's no guarantee that what I'm doing is healthy after all, although, as I explained above, I think it's extremely unlikely due to adaptation and likely beneficial effects of sleep deprivation. And since I take a 20-minute nap under my wife's watch, whenever I don't feel good. And if you're going to take a nap, take it for 20 minutes. Don't take a 3-hour nap. Don't take a 10-minute nap. Set your alarm, 20 minutes, and wake you up. Because if you go longer than 20 minutes, you're getting into REM sleep, and that really messes you up and makes you very tired. Here's a tweet that he quotes. It's a known scientific fact. There is zero loss of cognitive function for a 7 a.m. start after spending an entire night out so long as you down Red Bull every hour and take a shower before heading in. Too many snowflakes, not enough fun these days. There he's making fun. Now, here we go. So that's his argument. 8 points of his argument, and one of them, 6 points, and the last one is conclusion. Here's his acknowledgments, and here we go. This is where Alexi really super shines. His citations, his notes, his common objections. When I'm underslept, I notice that I'm less productive. Answer, yes. It might be undersleeping causes what? Appendix. I have no trust in scientists. Why do I bother theorizing? Why do I think I can discover something about sleep that couldn't discover over many decades? These are criticisms that people level at him, that he doesn't know anything, that he's not educated, that he's from Russia. What does he know? Matt Walker is, I believe, British, but teaches in California. He at American school. PhD, I believe. Who are you? So this is where he answers his detractors. The idea that sleep's purpose is to metabolite clearance, if not total BS, is massively overhyped. Anecdotes about acute sleep deprivation with links. Anecdotes about long-term sleep deprivation with links. So all of this is backing up his argument. How I wake up after 6 hours of sleep. Elon Musk working 120 hours a week and sleep. Homeostasis, its relationship to mania depression and other points. So you may disagree with him. You may not like what he says. You may feel great sleeping 8 hours a day. You may feel great sleeping 5 hours a day. And I guess his point is, Alexi's point is, if you're able to function and you're not killing people, there are people who get not enough sleep and they go out and they drive a car and they fall asleep behind the wheel and hurt people. Other papers that he found interesting, and here are his references for everything that he argues in this paper. And then you get the comments. And here's the first one. I am pretty skeptical about this post. I think there is a core premise that is wrong here, which I will get to after I set up some bona fides. And Alexi responds, interesting anecdote, but I believe your argument is contradicted very strongly by the fact hunter-gatherers from the study I cite slept just 6.5 hours. I also suspect you were very depressed when you were homeless, which could confound your sleep time. It's implausible to me that either 28 hours a day or sleeping 2 hours a night could work. And then there's the response. I wasn't going to respond here because your response make it seems evident that you're unlikely to update. He said, sorry, my response to your comment was weird. I think what you are writing is reasonable, but I'm not actually sure how this relates to any of the arguments I'm making. So he's there, and he's answering his critics, and he's having a conversation. And Alexi responds and gives very interesting information back to his people wondering who he is and how dare he take on Matt Walker. And Matt Walker's a very powerful guy. He did a TED Talk, he's published a lot of books, made a lot of money, has a big reputation in the sleep community. And Alexi is going after that sort of thinking, not just necessarily Matt Walker, but others like him. And now it's time to take our very brief blood pressure break. We can come back and talk about Leah Thomas again, back in the news. Transgender athletes competing. How are we going to make this work? What are we going to do about it? I don't know the answer, but I'm willing to have the conversation to see what you think. We'll be back in a moment. And we're back from break. I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv. BOLES.tv. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. And on Friday, Jana Marie will be here with a very special lesson in American Sign Language at 9:15 a.m. She'll sort of come in right at the start of the show and do her thing, and then she has to leave because she has another meeting that she has to go to that would normally allow her to come in at 10:15, but we're moving her an hour early. So mark your calendars. She's on her way and she'll be here. So in the past on this live stream, we've talked about transgender athletes and how difficult it is to try to figure out the fairest way when it comes to competition. And those who transition have very hard lives. Just put away the athletic part of it for a moment, of just changing to become who they believe they were meant to be. I had a longtime friend I worked with for many, many, many years. Has a daughter. And then at 60, he decided that he was a woman and it was always intended to be a woman. And so he transitioned at age 60. I don't know if he had any surgery. I don't know anything about that. We haven't talked about it. But he now goes by a different name. And I remember when I was back in Nebraska, when I was growing up, if you were gay or trans or whatever, you kept it quiet because it was very dangerous to come out back then. And there were a few brave people who did and who didn't care. But there were a lot of people who stayed, I guess as they say, in the closet because they were too terrified for it to be known. And one friend of mine who was older than me by quite a bit worked at a television station and said that when you turn 50 and you realize that you're a gay man all of your life and you have a wife of 30 years and you have 3 daughters, but you realize your entire life has been a lie sexually, the only option you have, he said, is to jump out a window and kill yourself, or come out and ruin the lives of everyone you love the most. And so he chose living over jumping to his death, which I know is a very difficult moment for him. And he rationalized it in his mind that if he was in another state or in another city, that he could do things sexually that he didn't have to tell his wife about, and it didn't count because it was a different city. He said it's all ridiculous now that I'm saying it out loud, but that's how he survived for 30 years, sexually. And when he came out to his daughters and his wife, they didn't believe him. His wife, to that day when I knew, and he had been out and gone, moved to Florida for 10 years, his wife still thinks he's coming back. That this is just a minor bump in the road and he'll come back to her. does not accept any of it. And he did his best not to try to destroy his family. I think he's okay now with his daughters. Yeah, Doris says, wow, that's some choice. Unless you go through it yourself, one doesn't know what others go through. Yeah, I was really surprised when he told me that. And we weren't terribly close. We had done some plays together. And he was a big TV producer, so he had a lot of power. But to me, and people who knew him, I mean, you just knew that he was gay. But, oh, no, he's married, he has 3 kids. Well, then that's the stamp of approval. Well, you can't be gay and have kids. Well, you find out later. That happens quite a lot, especially older men at that time, 50, 60, now probably 70. If you wanted to have a family, you had to find a woman and have kids and then let life take its toll. And it's a terrible thing for the kids and the woman that you married. The only reason you married her was to have kids. So that's why when gay couples want to adopt children, we should help them do that. Because as somebody said, well, otherwise we're coming for your daughters. That was the rallying cry for these gay rights protests of the past. Well, you don't want us to be married as gay men. You don't want us to have children as gay men. Well, then, if we want to have children, the only way you're going to let us do that is by marrying your children, your daughters. That's what you want? You want your daughter marrying a gay man just so he can have a kid? That was a good point, but I don't think it was very effective. But this friend of mine was very careful. You know, they were married for 30 years. She got half of everything. She got the family home, half of his pension. He said, everything I have, you have half of it. Because that was our deal. And I'm sorry this happened. And now I'm moving to Florida to live my gay life, which is what he said to her. And she doesn't believe it. And maybe that's okay. That's just how she copes. That this is all fantasy. This is all not identity-based. Just necessity-based. So, he did it the right way, I guess. But, boy, what a decision to have to make. And there are some people that I look back and I wonder, they were young, they were beautiful, came from a very strict family, and they ended up killing themselves. And you just wonder, at the age of 26, the age of 21, do you say, my gosh, this is my life? And my parents and my friends will not accept it, so I guess I'll jump out a window. I'll pull out a gun, I'll turn on the car exhaust and stay in the garage and see what happens. That's what happens when people get stuck and get fearful. So this Leah Thomas thing is just sad in many ways because Leah Thomas is a now female swimmer on the swim team for Penn University. And the university is in a very difficult position because universities today are woke. They are super progressive. They want to appear super progressive and super open and super equitable, so they don't have any choice really, if they want to keep the bona fides in the Ivy League, than to say we accept Leah Thomas unconditionally. And then there are other professional athletes who are saying, now wait a minute. If a child goes through puberty and then transitions later, a male child goes through puberty and transitions later and becomes a female athlete, that's an unfair advantage built into the bones of the body. And there are other people who say that's not true. So here's the latest hullabaloo about Leah Thomas. And this is Leah on the left as a woman. And this is how Leah appeared as a man on the swim team. I guess Leah's given one interview on video about this whole transition thing, and it was really interesting and also very confusing for me as an observer trying to figure out what Leah went through. So, on last Friday, the NCAA cleared the way for the swimmer Leah Thomas, transgender woman who has turned in the top times in the country in 2 events, to compete in the NCAA championships next month, saying that implementing new rules for testosterone testing in the middle of the season would be unfair to transgender athletes. I mean, right there, the whole thing is just a complete and total mess. Because the problem is not testosterone now, the problem is testosterone when you were 13 years old, and how it changed your body. But what are you going to do? I mean, you're 21 and you're transitioning. You can't, well, I'll wait until I'm done competing and then I'll transition, which is what some people wanted Leah to do. Just compete as a boy, do whatever you have to do, but compete on the men's team, and then when you graduate, you can transition. The move is an about-face for the NCAA, the organizing body in college sports, which said last month that it would require testosterone testing for the first time and plan to adopt standards set by sports federations beginning with the Winter Championships, which are held in February and March. But that desire to immediately align with federation standards became untenable last week when USA Swimming announced stringent policies that in some ways seemed targeted toward Thomas, a senior swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania. The new policies call for cutting in half the permissible limit for testosterone for transgender women, an extensive review of other physical characteristics and requirements that transgender athletes meet the new testosterone threshold. 5 nanomoles per liter for 36 months. The NCAA since 2011 has required transgender women athletes to be on hormone therapy for 12 months before they were allowed to compete, but had not said that they would require testing until last month. Most sports require testosterone levels in transgender women athletes to be below a prescribed level for 12 months, and a handful for as long as 24 months. Though recently, more experts have questioned the link between testosterone and performance. A visiting fellow on transgender athletic performance in England generally is in favor of testosterone testing, said the 36-month requirement was extraordinary, not based on any current science, leaving Harper's and others to suggest the rule was targeting Thomas, who said she began hormone therapy more recently than 36 months. So here is Caitlyn Jenner at the top talking about Leah Thomas. And there is Leah Thomas below, competing as a female for the University of Pennsylvania. And Caitlyn Jenner, when she was known as Bruce Jenner, won the decathlon in the Olympics, I believe 1976. It was exciting. It was unbelievably thrilling. And this is what Caitlyn Jenner says now about Leah Thomas. Obviously, this is about Leah Thomas, who has brought a lot of attention to the issue of transgender athletes competing. First of all, I respect her decision to live her life authentically, 100%. But that also comes with responsibility and some integrity. I don't know why she's doing this, for 2 reasons. 1, it's not good for the trans community. We have a lot of issues in the trans community that are very difficult and very challenging. We have a suicide rate that's 9 times higher than the general public. Jenner, who is now 72, transitioned in 2015. She won the gold medal in men's decathlon in the 1976 Olympics as Bruce Jenner. Leah Thomas is also not good for women's sports, Jenner said. It's unfortunate this is happening. I don't know why she's doing it. She knows when she's swimming, she's beating the competition by 2 laps. She was born a biological boy. She was raised as a biological boy. Her cardiovascular system is bigger. Her respiratory system is bigger. Her hands are bigger. She can swim faster. That's a known. All of this woke world that we're living in right now is not working. I feel sorry for the other athletes that are out there, especially at Penn or any other place she's competing against, because in the woke world, you have to say, oh my gosh, this is great, when no, it's not. So that's the other side of it. You know, you get the other side and they say, oh, no. She has to compete. She's a woman. And then you have professional athletes like Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova saying, no. They agree with they agree with Caitlyn Jenner that it's wrong. And it all has to do with the puberty, which I didn't really understand until I started researching and wondering about this topic. The issue is when these male children go through puberty and they go through the changes in their heart, the muscle, the bone structure, their hands grow, that gives them an inalienable advantage competing against other women when they transition into a woman. So what are you going to do? Say you can't compete? I don't know. I don't know the answer to any of this. I find the whole thing absolutely fascinating. But the people who know, the competitors who know, who are in the trans and gay community, are very against Leah Thomas competing as a woman, which is fascinating to me because you would think it'd be the other way around. They say, no. She's been a woman all of her life. She just didn't know it, and now she knows it, and now she's biologically changing who she is and what she wants to be, and that's that. But they're not saying that. They're saying it's unfair. I love talking about language here, and we talked about people who sing with accents. Well, what's going on in Europe with language diversity? We talked about it a little bit last week, where new words and funkiness are fusions in London on different words and terms that come from foreign countries and get all blended together because the parents speak a very strict language and then the kids pick up on that sentence structure and make their own sort of language. It's very interesting. But the EU has a language problem. Do you want diversity in language or do you want one? In China, they want one language. I believe it's Mandarin. That's it. Every other language, every other accent, every other branch of Chinese is no longer wanted. They want one mother tongue for all of China. And you see that in America too. We're English. We don't speak Spanish here. There was the big Spanglish movement several years ago to try to create a new language that blended Spanish and English, and it was thoroughly defeated. Article 22 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights suggests that the EU shall respect linguistic diversity. Although the EU has 24 official languages, the European Commission conducts the majority of its business in English, French, or German. And if you want to be an airline pilot anywhere in the world, you have to speak English, period. You cannot speak any other language because you have to be able to communicate with ground control. And ground control speaks English and only English. It's very interesting. Some EU institutions are even more restrictive. For instance, the European Central Bank works mainly in English, while the Court of Auditors and the Court of Justice work mainly in French. If the EU is truly supposed to be promoting and respecting linguistic diversity, then why are there 3 official languages held in higher regard than the other 21? Now that's very interesting. We want a certain amount of diversity, but not 21. We'll take 3, but 21's too many. Too diverse. One likely answer is simply because it's cheaper. Truly supporting all 24 languages equally would cost astronomically more than what the EU already spends on language support. However, if cost is a concern, perhaps the EU should be considering using even fewer languages than 3. In 2005, a Swiss economist estimated the EU could save £25 billion a year by adopting a single working language. Perhaps this proposal seems contrary to the EU's alleged dedication to language pluralism, but the fact remains that among 24 official languages, only 3 are commonly used in EU institutions. That suggests all the talk of linguistic diversity is hollow. Now that the UK has left the EU, France has made a push to promote the French language in the name of multiculturalism. But for someone with no proficiency in either English or French, how is French any more multicultural than English? It's all about who's in power and who's paying. That's who makes the decision. Although this might be hard for some to hear, the reality is French is never going to be the preeminent lingua franca. For the time being, it's English, and will probably remain such until someday, perhaps, Chinese becomes more widespread. It'll never be Chinese because it's too difficult for people to learn. It's too complex and too complicated, and once you're over a certain age, you would never be able to master it. Which some people might like because they can control you because you don't understand the language. The fact that there are now fewer native English speakers in the EU thanks to Brexit actually strengthens the case for English. As it is used within the EU, requires that for most it must be learned as a second language, which puts nearly everyone on the same linguistic playing field. France, clinging to its own perceived exceptionalism within the EU, will not stop the linguistic trends that are already taking place. Promoting French above the other working languages only truly serves to provide a bonus to those competent in French at the expense of all the others. It also sets a bizarre precedent for changing the EU's de facto preferred working language every 6 months within the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union. And now I'm moving this song because I cannot hear myself. It's supposed to be instrumental only, and it's not. The EU's language practices already are not fair. But having multiple working languages that become more and less important, depending on who's in charge, is unnecessarily expensive and no more diverse for anyone whose first language isn't English, French, or German. Instead of only fighting U.S. tech companies with litigation, why not create and support alternatives for local languages? Why, for instance, isn't there a homegrown Finnish Facebook or Gaelic Google? Well, the same applies to the streaming wars. Instead of just requiring that Netflix, Disney, and others offer a minimum amount of European content, why not actively promote the creation of such content? Dora loves learning languages. Google Translate. Yeah, I love Google Translate. It's very, very helpful. And I've helped so much for me. And I've helped people in the building where we live. We have a lot of Asian and Chinese residents who come here. They don't know any English, but they have a lot of money because you can't live here without a lot of money. They come here with one suitcase and the clothes. And then they have to fill their apartment with a bed and everything else you need to live. So they have a lot of money, but they don't know English. And then the staff doesn't know how to communicate with them because they have an emergency, they have needs, they have help. So I taught them how to use Google Translate. It's on your phone, you speak, they speak, you speak, they speak, it all gets translated. It's an amazing, amazing app. And maybe we'll look at it when we come back from our next blood pressure break. Google Translate and Buddha and the Bard. Back in a moment. And we are back from break. I'm David Boles. This is Boles.tv, BOLES.TV. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Well, before the break, we were talking to Dora about Google Translate, and I found it on the web, and I like it a lot. But it doesn't look like you can speak the translation on the web. On your phone, you can. So we'll just say I have a fire in my apartment. I have a fire in my apartment. Exclamation point. And then here's the Google translation of it. Let's see if we can find a Chinese traditional. There you go. And it'll pronounce it for you. Here we go.
我的公寓着火了.
So there you go. Okay, it won't let me speak because I think my microphone is being used by our closed captions. So, what else do you want to say? I have a fire in my apartment. How is that pronounced in Slovak?
Mám v byte požiar.
Sudanese.
Kuring boga sene di apartemen kuring.
It's wonderful for the big city. If you don't have Google Translate on your phone, make sure you get it. It's just wonderful stuff.
ខ្ញុំមានភ្លើងឆេះក្នុងផ្ទះល្វែង.
The floors in my apartment need to be replaced because of water damage. And there you get an immediate translation.
ជាន់ក្នុងអាផាតមិនរបស់ខ្ញុំត្រូវផ្លាស់ប្តូរដោយសារទឹកខូច.
Hawaiian. Oh, you can't pronounce it though. Persian. Won't pronounce. Polish. Will pronounce.
Podłogi w moim mieszkaniu wymagają wymiany z powodu zalania.
Zulu. Will not pronounce. Vietnamese will pronounce.
Các tầng trong căn hộ của tôi cần phải được thay thế vì nước bị hư hại.
So there you go. Google Translate will do everything you needed to do and more. It's fun. It's a great way to try to figure out what's going on. And it goes the other way. People don't know. Some people don't know how to type or how to write. And that's why the iPhone version, the cellular version of it, is even better, because you just hold the microphone up to them and they speak their language, what they want to say, and then you listen to what they say and it's spoken to you in your language. And you can speak right back to them and it speaks the answer to them in their language. It's amazing. Dora loves it. I love it too. So one of the benefits you have of writing books, of being a book publisher, of being online, having a large social media following, is a lot of people send you information trying to get you to read their book and promote their book. And they don't want just a mention on social media. Oh, no. They want an article. They want in-depth live stream for 2 hours. They want you to interview the author. They're never satisfied, the PR people. And then every once in a while, you get a PR person who's very laid back and who says, hey, we created a Dropbox folder for this new book. And it has a full-color photo of the front cover and the author and some interesting pages, if you'd like to share them. Plus, the whole book is there for you to read in PDF format. If you're interested and you want to talk about it. You don't have to do anything. Download it all. Never say anything to us again. We just would like you to do that. Now, I respond to that because I find that interesting. And when you get a title like The Buddha and the Bard, you think, well, now that's very interesting. What is going on here? Buddhism, meditation, yoga with Shakespeare? That's the kind of mix-up and the toss-up that I like a lot. You take two opposite and conflicting ideas and you blend them together to bring new meaning to two very old and ancient ideals. So this is the front cover of The Buddha and the Bard book. where Shakespeare's stage meets Buddhist scriptures. Now, that to me, that is slightly problematic because the title suggests just the opposite, the Buddha and the Bard. Not the Bard and the Buddha. But it's written by Lauren Schufrin. I love the book cover. I love the colors. I love the design. I love the mandala in the hand. I like the theatrical masks. I like the king. I love the sun, the stars, the night. It's beautiful. So here's the author. This is Lauren. You can see her holding flowers with her tattoos on the beach. Okay, I like the picture. This is how you put together a press packet. And then they have little pieces where you can read about it. All the men and women merely players inhabiting the stage. There's no greater mark of William Shakespeare's enduring prominence than that of the generic noun bard. A poet, a composer of verse, stands in for a single figure when preceded by a definite article. The bard is Shakespeare. The word bard comes from the Celtic bardo, which, serendipitously, sounds just like an important Tibetan word. In Tibetan Buddhism, bardo is the intermediate state between death and rebirth, or more broadly interpreted, any interval between two states, the gaps that disturb our sense of continuity. This book sits in one such gap between literature and scripture, embodied drama and transcendent practice. It plays in the geographical and temporal gaps. 4,400 miles, 2,000 years between Siddhartha Gautama's The Buddhist Ancient India and Shakespeare's early modern England. Sounds very interesting, right? She has set the stage for a very interesting book. And here's the next best part of it. This is the PDF version of the book that was sent to me. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but we'll look at it a little bit together. And this is, to me, very dangerous because they usually like to send you a physical book because it's a physical book and you can't email it to anybody. In an electronic book, they usually cripple it. They put passwords. They put it on a Kindle. You can't share that or read it easily. But a PDF you can print out, a PDF you can email to yourself, a PDF you can download from their Dropbox folder. It makes it much easier to enter into the world of understanding and selling the book. So this is the PDF galley of the book. So if you were to buy the book, this is exactly how it would look, except it's here in PDF format. And it's moving very slowly for some reason. Okay, so contents. And this is where her whole argument gets set up. Into the practice, taking place, keeping watch, vigilance. In the first act of Henry VI, our bodies are our gardens, Iago on cultivating seeds, becoming strange to the world, Troilus and Cressida in the beginner's mind. Right there, it's fantastic. So just very interesting. You just want to say, what is she going to say about this? The three marks of existence, the impermanence and Prospero's mask, the suffering of painful experiences, King Lear's birth cries, and the bones of Richard II. The suffering of change, Hermia's failing legs. The suffering of conditional reality, Hamlet's dust. Non-self, and Prospero's paused arts. So just reading this introduction, It just takes you right into the middle of it. And we'll try to see if we can get into one of the chapters here. If the scrolling wasn't so slow and so painful. Okay, let's see here. Now we're starting. So our bodies are our gardens. Iago and cultivating seeds. Our bodies are our gardens, to the which our wills are gardeners. So that if we plant nettles or sow lettuce, set hyssop and weed up thyme, supply it with one gender of herbs, or distract it with many, either to have it sterile with idleness or manured with industry. By the power and incorrigible authority of this lies in our wills. It's easy to forget that Othello is a play of more than one heartbreak. Rodrigo is in love with Desdemona, who's eloped with Othello, leaving the unrequited lover in a state of jealous despair. Desdemona's father brings his grievance over the secret marriage to the Duke, claiming the African general must have enchanted his daughter with foul charms. In the hearing that follows, Othello eloquently recounts how Desdemona fell in love with him. Desdemona professes her loyalty to her new husband, and she asks to accompany him on his next military venture, so as not to be denied sexual intimacy. If I be left behind, the rights for why I love him are bereft me. It's a remarkably forthright request, and as the stage clears, leaving Iago and Rodrigo, who've witnessed these public declarations of love, one imagines the miserable lover visualizing the marital rights Desdemona openly craves. I will incontinently drown myself, he claims melodramatically, evoking Iago's frustration. I confess it is my shame to be so fond, but it is not in my virtue to amend it. But Iago rejects the notion that Rodrigo is emotionally impotent. 'Tis in ourselves that we are thus or thus. We are beings abundant in agency like farmers over their fields, and it's through our actions, planting, weeding, manuring, and lack thereof idleness, that we are one thing or another. It's a very interesting book. Hard to put down once you start getting into it. And the author knows Shakespeare and knows Buddhism and bleeds them together. It's really wonderful stuff. So here's the title of the book, The Buddha and the Bard. William Shakespeare's stage meets Buddhist scriptures. Well, that's our show for the day. Had a wonderful time with you. Talked about language and identity and the sexualization of athletes, and strip-searching students to find their vaping pens. Sounds very interesting, Dora says. Yeah, it's a very interesting book. And I tell you, I get a lot of book pitches, probably 10 to 15 a day, and all of them are usually about a person and about success in business. They're not really thoughtful or intellectually challenging like The Buddha and the Bard is. Really quite fascinating. And I thank you so much for being here. We're going to have more interesting things to chat about tomorrow. If you have a question for me, you can write to me, David, at boles.tv. If you have a question for Jana, who will be here 9:15 a.m. on Friday, a little bit of change of plan for her, Jana at boles.tv. Have a good one too, Dora. See you soon. On Twitter, you can find me at David Boles. On Facebook, I'm a regular old Boles. On Instagram, hey, Boles Books. On TikTok, Boles TV. And our Discord server, if you're interested, is this link. Join us there for conversation anytime you like. If you are into NFT and cryptocurrency, my ENS name is Boles, BOLES.ETH. If it means nothing to you, that's fine. If it means something to you, you know what I'm talking about. So until tomorrow, I wish you a wonderful day and a good evening and a pleasant sleep. But not too much, or Alexi Guzy will come for you. Sometimes the music is right on target, and you don't even know it till it's too late. So be in touch. May you wake up, wherever you are, with joy in your soul and purpose in your heart. I will see you tomorrow. Take care.